Hey guys and girls, just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about Buzzsprout. Start a podcast today with free podcast hosting for Buzzsprout, easy podcasting software for hosting, promoting, and tracking your podcast. Buzzsprout is the best way to publish a podcast online for secure and reliable hosting to full iTunes support. Get started for free, no credit card required, cancel at any time.
Stats for losers.
That's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is.
You play to win the game.
Welcome to the Airin podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Airing It Out podcast. This is Dustin, your host as always. Today, my guest is Kristen Netten. She goes as K10 on Twitter. She's also a member of the Third Row Tesla podcast. How are you doing, K10? And welcome back.
I'm good. Thank you, Dustin, for having me back on.
Oh, for sure. It was so much fun the last time. I felt that it was so easy to talk to you and you were so knowledgeable. I definitely wanted my audience to get an opportunity to hear more of you.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, the episode did great too. So thank you so much for all your support.
Yeah, it's cool that you're doing this. Yeah.
Thank you. So we were talking a little bit off air before we start to dive into some of the things we wanted to talk about. Your dad's doing well and everything ended up going okay with everything that happened because he did contract COVID, correct?
Yeah, he had a guy that came into work that had COVID. Kind of one of those guys, I mean, a lot of people know them, that they got a cold and they're not really good at diagnosing themselves, but they're just going to tough it out. Always came into work with colds and flu, but it's COVID season, COVID pandemic, and he came into work with COVID. And my dad got it. Everybody in my dad's department got it.
Wow.
Really bad. And my dad, I think I was sharing with you, he had a heart attack in his late 30s. A lot of different things, stress related to that. And then he had double bypass in his early 40s. So I mean, what my dad's in his mid 60s, knowing that he had all that, and hearing that, you know, the heart and just the cardiac system is, if you have a weak one, is not good if you get COVID. So I was very worried for my dad, but researched a bunch of different things for him to take and foods and to like finite detail his diet, and he's better now. 2 weeks and he's back at work.
That's
and
amazing.
He's feeling stronger too.
That's so
yeah.
awesome.
Like there's a lot of people with sickness. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm so happy.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know,
really.
I think the last time we talked a little bit about the differences between males and females when it came to being hangry. You know, I find it very fascinating that now we're in flu season, COVID is happening, but yet you still have a lot of these gentlemen specifically that are toughing it out, going to work and not really, maybe I don't want to use the word not being careful, but like the tough guy stuff kind of has to take a back seat because we just can't, like if you're sick now, even if you think it's just a little bit of a cold, you got to take it serious. And I don't think that our leaders are serving out the right messages in the sense of wear the mask, stay home if you're sick and things of this nature. I think that macho man stuff might need to be curbed a little bit because this thing is very dangerous.
Yeah, I think you're right. But there's so many people who are so unaware of their interactions with themselves or even the interactions of being sick and what it looks like in their body. They don't alter a lot of things. And I don't think a lot of them mean like harm on people, but what is that? Ignorance is bliss. Like the lack of thinking this all through, just other people pay for it. We already know that's the way things work. And then you make people mad.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I tell people all the time, you know, you're wearing the mask to protect others, right? And you're trying to be nice by respecting others' people wishes. And, you know, we have seen that some of this stuff, you know, can be effective. The social distancing, the wearing the mask stuff. What I wanted to ask you was, because you're still in Northern Cal, right?
I'm actually up in Oregon. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm like
okay.
north. I'm West Coast, but yeah.
How are you guys doing over there? I mean, are you guys shut down? Because we're down here in SoCal and everything's locked down. So how's COVID affected you guys in the sense of opening and closures and all that kind of stuff?
So yeah, I read about LA. You guys are like under house mandate lockdown. We have restaurants closed. Schools have been closed forever. I think we all know movie theaters have been closed, big public gatherings. our governor outlawed Thanksgiving because this happened right before Thanksgiving. You're not allowed to meet in groups larger than 6 people. And the governors within the area, I think that's Newsom, Brown, and then the Washington governor, I can't remember their name, didn't want people really traveling across the borders for the holidays either. So yeah, we're under a tight lockdown, but I mean, I don't know, like here it's kind of dreary and damp and you don't really go outside as much as it is. But I see people that are locked down in California still, I'm like, it's sunny out and they're going to the beach. I'm like, oh, that looks so nice. Like, happiness. It's kind of dreary here.
Yeah, no, that's a shame. At least for you guys, for sure. If the weather's not inviting, it definitely makes it easier to stay home. Over here, there are a lot more options, and I think that's why, whether you agree with Newsom or not, they were kind of proactive instead of reactive early. Just because people out here are usually, congregating in more than 6 and hanging out, and I went out to the beach earlier when all this stuff was going on, and people were distancing, but it's kind of hard, right? People just start having a couple drinks or whatever the case might be. I think that's why bars got shut down so quickly, because people just threw kind of the science to the wind and just didn't care or forgot to care is probably a better way. Because once you got a couple drinks in you, you want to talk, you want to socialize. It's just a very tough time.
Yeah, bars are why people do that, right? They want to forget life. They want to go and just like unwind. So I could see people, especially if they're in the habit of doing it, like they just want something norm, so they go to their normal get together with friends bars. Like coffee shops there's not much difference. You run into a lot of, especially the retired crowd that love to get together and just congregate around a table at a coffee shop for hours on end. So I mean, they are told no too. So
I know. I think one thing that I definitely learned from COVID was how much we need each other, and how much being by ourselves is really not the answer in the sense of how we socialize. I understand it for health reasons and stuff like that, but we really enjoy being around people. I mean, it provides you energy. Staying home locked up is not ideal for mental health. And it's crazy on how alarming the numbers are starting to climb up in that department.
Yeah. The community thing is quite a big thing. Like we need each other for community. That is very true. And I think it's getting to us. People, we're social creatures, and this is really depressing for a lot of us to be like this. I mean, the holidays have made me excited again, but when I start seeing people, like you get on Twitter or something and you start seeing like crazy things happening, I'm just like, I think I'm going to tune this out for the next couple weeks, because it's the holidays and it's a short window that we get to have some kind of like reminiscing cheer that reminds us of the way life used to be. So.
Yeah, I know, me too. It's hard, because you're trying to stay informed and you want to be on social, and I have felt the same way. I'm like, well, you know what? I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break, because all the news for the most part is bad news. And then if Twitter gets a hold of something, they just beat it down like a piñata. So it's just everywhere, right? And people are retweeting it and liking it, and it's just all over your feed. So it's been an interesting year so far. I can't believe we're not done yet. So surprisingly, we'll see how things go. I wanted to start to dive in on a couple of things. I'm trying to think where I wanted to start, but I'm gonna jump around a little bit.
Okay.
What are your thoughts right now since Tesla split and everything that's been going on from the home base? Obviously, it's on the rise now, but it kind of hit a little bit of a shake. What are your thoughts on how the stock was impacted after the split?
Oh, that was interesting. After the split. So we're talking about like midsummer, like when that all. That was a good thing for the early investors, especially since there's all been this hype about Robinhood through COVID and the younger investors getting a chance to get in. And it's just wild that the stock went from 300 something in March to all the way to 2,100, and then it split 5 ways. It was a good thing. I think it lets people get a full share, especially if they're not on a part of a group that can take fractional shares. And it's just climbing back up. So, I mean, I think it's a good thing, and it kind of went down a little bit, then back up. But I know Tesla's here for the long run. It's not just an auto company; it's quite larger, and I think people are just starting to understand it's more than just this one dimension kind of company. It's multifaceted. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that when the last time you were on the show, we were discussing on whether or not he was going to be a part of the S&P 500, and then it kind of got I don't know, rain through the news that wasn't happening, and then now it's happening, and so it seems like it's starting to trend upwards. I think it's an amazing company.
Yeah.
They're doing so many things, but I never thought they were going to get in the liquor business. What's up with when did they decide to make that transition?
That is hilarious. So, like, I think back in 2018, like when we were on Twitter, I had, I think Elon's tweets more notifications. He did tweet out about that Tequila as a joke. Like, and I think he was kind of serious about it. So I think, like a lot of those Hollywood different big people, they have the money and they have the dreams. If they have a vision, they just do it. Like, what is that? Like, that Ryan Reynolds, like,
Aviation.
what is his group?
The aviation gym that he has. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But I mean, we just know Elon, if he gets into something, it's just kind of fun. Like, he had the not a flamethrower, but he joked around about it. And I think at one point the talk was that he couldn't get into it, or Tesla couldn't get into it because what is the agave plant? Like the monopoly on that kind of, and the rules and regulations for that kind of stuff, and like within like areas is really, really strict. It's just like wine. The wine growers and the vines and stuff like that from France to like America and claiming different things, really strict. So
it was almost similar to the way they treat champagne, because agave has to come from a certain area. And in my past life, I was a bartender, and I didn't realize that mezcal is kind of obviously like the floor of it. But when you say tequila, that's actually, people think that it's not a big deal, but they actually have certain areas. It has to have so much of the plant within it. They can't do this, they can't do that. Maybe no irrigation, certain rules. I mean, it's almost like a French Italian wine where there's hardcore restrictions. So yeah, no, it must have cost a pretty penny to try to get into that industry, especially if it was made with agave.
Yeah, what is the group? Is it Nostrano? I don't remember the group that they partnered with. So instead of going directly to the growers and just doing it, I think they had to partner with someone. And it is a pretty penny. I mean, that's like it's not that many ounces. Like, it's like, in the bottle's a cool design, but there's not a whole lot of tequila in that, and you're paying $2.50 a pop. So I'm like, dang, like I'd like to try that.
I know.
It's
almost like, I was gonna say, it's almost like Johnny Blue now, right? They're gonna be like $40-$50 a shot. That's definitely for the high rollers. At least he knows. At least maybe one day he could treat it like some of the different models that he's done. Eventually, we might get the inexpensive version as he continues to perfect it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because I can't
I just
afford
don't even
it.
know what I do with the bottle.
Right.
I know. I'm like, should I hide it in a box forever? Like, wait till, should I sell it? Like, drink it all with a bunch of friends? But
I guess so. I mean, maybe it's something to cheers or pick up if this pandemic ever stops. That'd probably be worth something cool to do. Just make sure you don't put it in a margarita, because that'll probably be a waste.
yeah, no, yeah, seriously. Yeah, definitely. And for the people who have bought into Tesla way early, that is just like icing on the cake to them. I can't see why they wouldn't get a few of those bottles and just celebrate.
Yeah,
They've made themselves multimillionaires, or Tesla has.
Seriously, I know. I'm trying to be one of those guys, but like I said, for a while the stock was crazy erratic, so I kind of backpedaled. But I think that I'm ready to go back in. It seems like it's trending up and it's getting very strong, and there's just continuous news about things going well. One of the things that wasn't so great, he just had to scrub one of his most recent launches. What was it that you gathered or you heard for the reason that they had to scrub the mission?
You mean the satellite launch?
Yeah.
Oh, that is one that I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to. I think I had something serious going on that day. For the majority of it, this is probably out of Cape Canaveral. The majority of it is usually weather related.
Okay.
But I don't know. Usually, the weather on the Cape just changes so often. There's never, usually, if rarely is it ever a faulty issue. I know the SN8, that everyone was waiting for that Hawker launch, that flight, and that had to be scrubbed once because it was going to be, I believe, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then it was like the next day. But the whole window, they thought it was going to be the week before. But because of that area, Boca Chica, like the residents down there have privy of the roads because they can't close all the roads down for people on the weekends to go to the beach and stuff. So the weekends they can't do the launches, so they do them during the weekdays. But the road closure had extended into a Monday, and I think it even was on a Friday, so they had to push the launch out to like a Tuesday, I believe. And then like they sent something was kind of off, like T-10 or something like that, or T-1 to the launch on the SN8. They did it the next day. Come to find that it's the header of the CH4 that didn't have enough pressure for the fuel. So the Raptor engine itself wasn't pushing down enough with what it, like the pressure of the fuel coming out. So it came in a little too fast on the launch pad. So But it was still a cool launch.
Yeah, no, his stuff. I mean, like I said, they're always doing great stuff. I mean, I this summer watched him and NASA send those gentlemen, and I think there was a young lady on the team too up, and that was awesome. I know that you were able to get to Battery Day. If you could share some of your takeaways from that day, because it was a huge event, amazing. There was just so much to digest. I think the best news was that we're gonna get an affordable vehicle. I think that was probably the best takeaway. But tell me some of your thoughts and takeaways from the event, because I know you were there, right?
Yeah. So I didn't expect to go. I didn't originally get an invitation, but there was a petition by the community for me and whole Mars to go. And I think it just got around, and then we got, to a certain degree with the way things played out. We did get an invitation. And so very excited to go. I think I had already booked Airbnb way before. I do that for most of the Tesla events months ahead of time, because that's how you lock in a good place at a good price. But there's my secret.
I know, I was going to say for the consumers.
Yeah, watch everybody. I mean, Airbnb is like volatile with the IPO right now, but man, if you can rent a house in Kansas for $39 for a night, why would you like want a hotel room when you have like family you can host with you? So
agreed, and there's a kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. There's bedrooms, places to play, backyard. So I went there super excited. I came in a day early just to rest and lay low. And then there was a meetup the day before. It was great to meet up with people. The weather was pretty warm. Not that warm, but it was warmer than here. We got in line, and one thing that I met up with Kim Paquette. I don't know if anyone follows her. She's one of the FSC beta girls or people on Twitter, and she's doing an excellent job, like just putting out the videos. Like she's kind of become the queen of FSC beta videos, and I'm super happy for her. Like, it's an excellent thing that she's doing. But met up with Kim. Shout out to Kim. Shout out to you, Kim. We waited in line. We noticed that the majority of the people in line were all male, which is normal for this community. Like 90% is most predominantly male in this kind of community. But waited in line, waited for quite a while. It was warm enough that they had a tent for the people that were handing out water and registering us. And so they kept on saying, here's some sunscreen, here's some water. Met up with just random people that come and say hi to us. We had to keep our masks on. There was continual reminders, please stay 6 feet away. Very kind, but Tesla does not need lawsuits because someone, for whatever reason, gets too happy because you get COVID or whatever. But Vincent, I think people know Vincent from Third Row, met up with us in line and kind of went through the lines. I was getting ready to go through the lines that everyone else was going through, and they actually pulled me and Vincent aside to go to like the VIP line, which I was not expecting.
Very nice.
I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And like, first you're like, why are they pulling you out of line? Like,
I know, security,
and they went over there security.
And
like, I know. Tesla's just amazing. We have the best people working for them. Went and registered at this desk with Vincent. Kim's like, where are you going? I was just texting her, we're over here. My phone's slowly dying. And then they had us wait in a lounge, and then they ushered us out to the cars. And there's a few people who were already in the cars that were tweeting like mad, like, we're in cars. This is so cool. And we're just like, this sounds amazing. Like, these cars lined up in front of this, like, it was like a drive-in theater, and your car was your personal speaker, which was an amazing idea. And they put us all in Ys, which all gave us a chance to really get the feel of the Y without driving it. So like we could all, it's like a kind of a marketing thing too in itself.
Yeah, it was pretty genius.
My Y was it was pretty genius. My Y was I think it was like 4th row back. It was in front. It was kitty corner. Like Gally was right from Hyperchange was kind of kitty corner right by me, and then Omar from Whole Mars was right behind me, and then to the right of me was Alex from Germany. He was he's a guy that you can follow on Twitter. I think some people know who I'm talking about. He was to the right of me, and just a bunch of different people I knew in the area. But we kind of got out, said hi, did what we had to do, and jumped back in the cars. My screen at one point stopped giving like audio and visual, so it was like off, like it wasn't doing anything, and I kind of panicked. I waited for like 10 minutes and it wouldn't set, and this was just right when they were doing the battery stuff. I was like, I'm missing so much. So
hold on real quick.
Gally was waiting
on the screen of the vehicle. You were able to watch what was going on.
Yeah, so whatever you guys were seeing, we were seeing too. Yeah, and like you could see Elon over there. I mean, on the screen, actually, there was a netting to keep them in the shade, so I had to kind of see around it. because Drew and Elon were up and talking, which they both did an excellent job. Everybody who talked. Gally was waiting to the lady, one of the main ladies, really sweet lady who was helping run the event, had the microphone and was waiting to get a question from Gally, kind of that shout out that Elon gave to Gally. And so I thought, you can't jump in a car with him. And I'm like, technically, I just jumped in the car with Omar. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I need to see you, sorry. And she came over and I let her know, I'm like, we usually travel together. Like, it's okay. Like, as a group, like we're kind of like a group. So like, I didn't want to alarm her, but I'm like, my car's not working. So she did say it was okay as she was trying to get a technician to fix the car. Cause I mean, I'm sure there's just hiccups here and there for a few people. So I at least didn't miss parts of the event that I wanted to, but the battery day stuff was dynamite. There was things that he was talking about, like the smaller design, like car, maybe like the hatchback, the smaller car that they're going to do. The different types of batteries, from like the iron phosphate to the nickel, and the way they're going to do different batteries and where they're going to go to different places. The 4680 cell and what places we're going to develop those. Like Brandenburg's going to be developing their own, Fremont and some Texas, and then just like tons of good information. There was a lot of good information. So, and a lot of it, I think, for the Tesla buff, most of us were in sync with it. It's what we expect and what we knew. But and I really feel like it was catered to us. But for the everyday analyst who really still doesn't even get Tesla from Wall Street, I think a lot of it flew over their head. Like they didn't get it. And I think the majority of the battery manufacturers and the mineral suppliers, they got it too. Like from what you walk away with, it was that Tesla was needing a certain amount of batteries. Tesla needs batteries to be like this. And this is just very like on par with Elon and the different companies he does. He's working with people, but he can't find anybody to do what he needs. So he's going to bring it in-house and he's going to do it, but he's not going to show you up and be your main competitor. He's going to invite you on board to do it and say, hey, this is how it's done. This is what we're doing. Partner with us or get up to par. Like here's the standard. I need you to meet this because we need this stuff. So it's to help everybody get on board, but they're now pulling the weight moving forward and asking everyone else to like get on board. So it was cool. I loved it.
It looked amazing. I you know, so funny because you were posting some stuff and I was like trying to follow you while I was watching the vid, and then I see all the cars and they're all honking. I was like, I hope K10's somewhere in those cars having a good time, pumping the horn. It was so much stuff. I was really excited, like I said, to see that he understands the consumer and not all of us have $100,000 to buy one of his vehicles. And that now he's, making it available at maybe the $30,000 to $25,000 mark, and also pushes, us having a cleaner, environment and trying to get rid of some of these old ways of building cars and manufacturing vehicles. And then he comes in talking about, which I thought was going to be the big thing, him redesigning the battery and kind of these other things. Do you think, and I know he usually does this, but is he shooting for the moon and hopefully ending for the stars? Because he seems to be one of the few guys that kind of really pushes the envelope and then has to wait for everybody to catch up, like you were just saying.
Yeah. And I think he's even said that. He's like, you can, he said that, I think, in an earnings call, you probably should aim higher than, and this is true. This is what I personally believe. You always reach higher than you think you're going to get, and you surprise yourself. If you make the mark further back, people may not push as hard to get to that mark. You want to make the mark further up and just hope that they at least get to the real mark of where you think it's going to be. And he always does that. Yeah, I appreciate that about him. And that's kind of why I think people say, like, Elon may be late, but he always delivers. Like it may be that he makes the goal a little bit earlier and a little bit higher, but I mean, you have to set the goal. You have to set the target in order to hit it. And if that is the target in the long run, even if you can't make it now, at least you're putting a fire under people, in my opinion. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So with all of these goals that he's setting, obviously Neuralink is kind of around the corner. I think the last that I heard when he did his unveiling of that was like there was about a year and change from human testing. With all of this, him putting so much on his plate, what are thoughts, or what have you been hearing about the light rail or any of these underground tunnels that he's been trying to work on, but they kind of haven't been, there hasn't been as much news about it?
Yeah, I mean, 2020 is just like a beast. Like, it's working everyone over, and so I mean, Tesla just had to work on making sure it got its supplies in. Supply chain was so messed up from COVID. I mean, because we rely on so much international, even if it's just materials, raw materials. But Tesla did a pretty good job, like keeping above it all. Boring Company. I mean, Boring Company is kind of a silly joke of an idea he was kind of serious about, but he wasn't. But it did start, so now it's quite a serious thing. Las Vegas itself was dead because of COVID. So, I mean, that was one of his contracts. He still finished the project and is still working on it. We don't hear a lot about it because, I mean, we don't have people really using it yet. But I still think he's working with the projects. I think there was one in Washington, D.C., maybe Maryland, and a few other places. So I know that he's putting it out there, but it's like asking people to buy ice cream at an ice cream truck when there's no ice cream trucks and people out in the streets right now. So I guess he just really can't really push it at the moment. So
Yeah, no, COVID has definitely made things difficult. I mean, the post office can't get your mail on time, so I could only imagine trying to get raw materials for stuff that's never been invented before, trying to get them and expedite them quickly. You had mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking about how it's predominantly kind of a man or male, like the bulk of the interest and the bulk of the gents in the building are men and young men. They just had this young lady, Gata Jali Ra, the 15-year-old, and she wins, Time Magazine, or is named Time Magazine Scientist and Inventor. I wanted to hear your thoughts on what should we be doing from a community standpoint to be pushing more women into science and cultivate the young ladies that are already interested in it, because distance learning has become difficult for a lot of people. But I do know that, women have the same capacity that men do, and we're starting to see more female CEOs and more women in charge. And like you were name dropping a couple young ladies. What are some of your thoughts in the space for to get females more involved?
Well, I think implementing STEM programs in schools is going to be a big one in general. I just think the STEM programs are not as predominant throughout everywhere, just because, I mean, they've been ushering out the last 10 something plus 20 years, but they're usually in areas where there's high amounts of engineers and scientists in Silicon Valley or like, I don't know, LA, like bigger cities, more predominant, more affluent, because that's kind of what happens. It's just like this kind of snowball effect of, and then those people see that there's a need and they bring it into the communities and stuff. But for women, I don't know, like I'm not always typical either. So, I wasn't the kind of girl who grew up where it was like, I'm going to have a wedding and this is going to be my dress. I wasn't that kind of, and there's a handful of girls that are still, that are really like that, but to get the women more involved, I just think getting them into classes and like summer classes where they experience this stuff. Maybe there's a stigma that it's only a male thing in some of their minds or some of their families' minds or communities' minds. I'm not quite sure. I think when we study the brain, and there's a lot of dispute on this, but there is facts on it, like men tend to be more mathematically inclined. Women speak more verbal, like language, more words daily than men usually. But there's different people on the board of that spectrum that doesn't fall into completely like this is like atypical of what has to happen. So I just think exposure. I think people don't understand that engineering sometimes is just this creative endeavor that they can like put themselves into, and they're capable of it. So, yeah, maybe.
For you, when you were, I know you're pretty young now, but when you were, a kid, who were some of your inspirations, or were you interested in science right out the gate, or was that something that kind of developed later in life?
So. My dad would go visit my grandpa, his dad, and every now and then, and I'd go with them just because I like to hang out with my dad. And like they would have their conversation. I kind of sit quietly on the couch, but my grandpa, he's a mathematician, I like a geologist. Like he would have a stack, and I'm not kidding you, as tall as like the couch of National Geographics, and that's what I like stuff like that. I would just sit and go through National Geographic, but that really got, I kind of am just like prone and inclined to that kind of stuff. But like even just watching movies like Indiana Jones, I'm like, I want to be Indiana Jones. Like I like adventure and exploring, and I like the idea of archaeology and stuff. It's definitely not all glitz and like glamour and fun like that in real life. But just those kind of things I think inspire you as a kid and make you dream about that kind of stuff. I'm a bit more outgoing in that way, that I'm willing to try those kind of things. But as for scientists, like I always was fascinated with Leonardo da Vinci since like a very young age, just because he has this highly creative, artistic, and scientific mind. He's not just, I mean, he's a polymath. Like he's amazing. Like in just the way he solved things and learned things. Like I was in a chat, actually, a group on Twitter, and I was following medical surgeries, like just because some of their stuff was interesting, but some of their stuff is gross.
It's
like, and I like
not
it
for
makes
easy
me
stomach
sick to
people.
my stomach.
Yeah.
Yes, and like I think I reposted one because it was crazy. I'm like, wow, look at this. And someone's like, you are so dark. Like, ew, what is wrong with you? And I'm thinking, well, it is kind of cool. Like I wasn't like, it's not dark, but I was like, dang it. They would have a hard time with Leonardo da Vinci. They do know he went to the morgue, pulled bodies out, and literally like dissected them, pulling apart the nervous system, and these were like, there's no formaldehyde in these bodies. Like, and we love that his mind and his capability and his willing to take risks did that. I mean, you might think he's really sick and messed up if you found your, but I mean, yeah, there's just a curiosity about people that is not always dark. It's just, this is fact. This is what the body does. This is the way the world works. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of Leonardo, and I was very interested to find out that that's how they found out things, was to go through these bodies and try to understand the real way the body works. And I remember I almost came to tears when I seen the David, because Michelangelo used to do the same thing. He used to take bodies out to understand the way veins were formed, the muscle sculpturing, and all this other stuff. I mean, I always tell people, you know, the Renaissance era was very interesting and had a lot of brilliant men that would just ahead of their time in so many different ways. But that's a really, really cool story. I think that, you know, a lot of young ladies are always influenced by their dads' interests sometimes. Now that we have, moving forward, we have Kamala Harris is going to be our first female VP. And from what I was reading, Joe Biden might have a huge number of women on his cabinet, and tying it all into how do we get more females or women interested in doing different things. I think this is a good beginning. If you could give me some of your thoughts on also how you feel about having the first female VP, and are we trending in the right way?
Yeah, I think having the first female VP is definitely a win. And I think as long as anyone is suited for a position, I'm all for it, whether male or female. That's just kind of my thing. I mean, I know there's a lot of different, across the board, different feelings about that and the way it pushes itself forward. But I'm kind of more in the party, like what is most efficient, like not just logically, like what is the mind that is going to get the job done right, you know? And some people might say, well, it's all a male field, so obviously you just want a male because only the males will respect the males. But if the intelligence and the gifting level is there, I say women should do it as well. Like that just makes sense. It's just a logical thing. It really shouldn't be an emotional thing. But from a female sense, on an emotional level, it is a good thing to encourage younger women to see that it is open. I mean, like we have Margaret Thatcher, and she's quite a giant in what she did, and she led the way, but she was a brilliant woman, and she got the job done. I mean, some people don't like some of the things she does, but I mean, you're not going to please everybody. That's just a given. You can't please everybody.
I think the same could be said about RBG or RGB. I always confuse the young lady who just passed from oh my God, why am I drawing a blank right now? But the Supreme Court justice, and it's awesome. I think it's great that we have women participating. I mean, you can't. I think sometimes working in an all male environment, you kind of get stuck on one side of thinking, and I think sometimes you need some fresh ideas. You need a fresh set of eyes, and it's always good for us to continue to expand and grow. And I think it's the worst thing in the world to surround yourself with yes men. You know, you should have maybe some yes women and some no women, right? And that's what challenges you, and that's what gives you breakthroughs, right? Because if we're always looking through the lens with the same telescope, we're not going to have these breakthroughs. And I'm really excited to see that Tesla has had a lot of great women, whether it was their involvement in any parts of the company. Now you were telling me that that young lady was helping out on how we're watching these Tesla, days and all these other things, and your guys, your teams and all these other people. And it's just really, really awesome. I'm super excited for the future, because I think it's about time we start changing it up and start doing things differently. And maybe we can come to conclusions a lot quicker. You know, sometimes, your point of view is not always the right point of view. And if you get an opportunity to see something through a different lens, it might give you an opportunity to view things differently. And maybe that's where we could start to create this change that we're looking for, and that I think a lot of people really want. And so it's really, really exciting to see the future ahead of us. Now, going back a little bit, we got Democrats in office. I wanted to get your thoughts on, do you think that this is maybe going to expedite a lot of the things that Tesla's trying to put into to the future? Because it seems like, whether it's the greenhouse emissions or any of these other things, the Democrats are usually on board with protecting the environment, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of that. Like Biden had stated they're going to go back into the Paris Agreement, which is a big thing. For sure, yes. And then there's so much debate about the way it looks and the way it works. And I don't think all the there's definitely Democrats that I'm sure that are like pro oil and that are pro some of that stuff. But for the majority, that supposedly is the way it's supposed to go. But then you look at like the taxation they're going to do too, like how it'll tax like Tesla and stuff. So it's like, I don't know, like I would assume so, yes. That we're assuming that everything is perfect down to a T in the way that we see it. So, maybe, I don't know. I would hope that it would be a big plus. That like GM was bought out by the government at 40%. The government still owns, and you see GM pulling these crazy things. Like, I don't know. They're politicians. They're not. They're not straightforward. But I would hope so.
Yeah, no kidding, right? They say one thing and do another thing. Like I said the last time, it's just It's exciting to see that, some of the smarter people are, starting to get an opportunity to make a difference. And, Elon is just, ahead so far on a lot of these fronts. And I know that for the most part, a lot of people give a lot of junk to some of these billionaires, but he's a gentleman that's in a totally different lane. And I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to have a day in his life when you have so many people relying on you, so many projects ahead of you, so many groundbreaking things, and then you got to toss COVID in there and reach some of these difficult things whether it's manufacturing issues or raw materials. What are how do you feel? Do you think that it was just because of some of the California restrictions that Tesla started to move their home base to Texas? What were some of the things that inclined him to move the base, if you're privy to any of that information?
I can only reflect on what Elon has stated publicly. He has stated quite a few years ago, that he loves Texas. And we do look at why Elon came here. It's like the spirit of entrepreneurship. It's the land of opportunity. It's the place where, the Wild West is open and anything can be done. And like even talking about people from the difference between the East Coast and the West Coast is the East Coast is like old money set in its ways. Well, the West is like a new place where you're not held to these societal restrictions, and like you can live and not feel like you're being like hampered on according to certain things. So I think more open places. Texas is huge, and that's part of it. Like Texas, Montana, Wyoming, you see like even Nevada are still these quite vacated, open range areas. There's kind of the spirit of like Elon's called a maverick, and that kind of fits into that Texas kind of shoot from the hip kind of idea, So I think maybe he feels like it just kind of is like he does things and does them big, and he does them with like this kind of almost shaking it up, and maybe he feels like Texas better suits him there. He has said he loves it, so his brother's running around wearing a cowboy hat. Not that per se that's Texas, not that it exactly makes you a cowboy, but it's. But yeah, but he's not the only one. So supposedly there's some kind of benefits to moving the headquarters there, because we have Peter Thiel moving Oracle there. We have Hewlett Packard that decided to move there, and I'm sure there's a ton more that are part of that. And Elon, and I know it's sad that words that we all used to embrace, like patriot, are now like these words that are like really like hashed up. Like, is that a bad word? Like, to be called a patriot? It's almost like they make it a bad word. But for what a patriot is in a historical sense, he's very patriotic. And he loves America, so I think he's not. There's a social democratic movement that's shaking things up, but he likes to mock a lot on Twitter. But he's definitely pro for keeping America for the good things that America has done. No country is perfect, and we can go through all their histories and find a lot of error. And most countries that are big countries have hurt the little people. I mean, you could take Europe as Julius Caesar was going through all of Europe. All these little European places were just little tribes or little kingdoms that they just kind of like poo-pooed to, like took slaves and did whatever they wanted. Like every country's like this. We just know the history of Europe more because it was kind of the last empire that we recognize. So, but there, I mean, it's everywhere. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think we talked also on the last episode that was kind of why I left the East. Very stringent, very old school thinking.
Yeah.
You know, it's that old money. If you're not born into it, then you're not allowed to maybe even receive it. And you come to the West, and the West is just full of opportunity. And it really is amazing how many people are really interested in helping you if you have an idea and it's sound and it makes sense. And even if it doesn't make sense, people are still trying to wing it on a weekend, you know, get a couple of beers and let's go into the garage and really try this out. And I think that that's actually one of the more beautiful things about the West. I just hope California eventually kind of gets things back to where they used to be, because if they don't, places like Texas and Nevada are going to really, really, I think, flourish in the next few years because they are more user-friendly when it comes to entrepreneurship and business sense. I wanted to ask you, we're about to end 2020. 2021 is on the horizon. What are some of the things that you're working on? And I know you're on the podcast, and I know I try, like I said, I try to keep up with you on the tweets, but girl, you are no joke. And so what are some of the stuff that you got going on? Are you going to eventually get your own podcast, or what are you thinking about launching for 2021?
So I have teased some ideas of doing some podcasts, and I have some podcast ideas. Not that they may continue to be things, but it will be just some fun stuff to throw out there. I think the community will really like, and I do have some in the making. I'm partnering with somebody right now, but they're not quite in the right spot to launch it. But yeah, I mean, I've been going on podcasts, and I'm really grateful that you guys like have me on and like pick my brain. Like it's very like humbling and very inviting. But yeah, I have that idea. I have a few different things that I am thinking about. There's been a lot of, I mean, COVID 2020, no joke, has been like personally like daunting. I've had things from doxing to like my house almost burned, the whole town was cleared. Like I could just like family members who have really big health problems and like I had to deal with, and like I mean, so like I'm alive, these people are alive, I still have like a place to live, like I'm all good, but it was exhausting. And I am pretty empathetically intuitive, so like I feel the environment of where I'm at. So just watching Twitter, even through the politics of the elections, was really like there's some exciting stuff and there's some pretty depressing stuff. Just to listen to like the people have echo chambers and willful ignorance just towards a whole group of people. Like you all believe this and you're like this, or just the propaganda at large. I was just like, this is just too much. Like I don't like to see hate, and I don't like to see people not be critical thinkers. So it kind of depressed me. But I mean, I'm back. It's the holidays, so. But yeah, I do have some stuff moving forward with. I just want to. It probably will launch over the holidays. So yeah, some stuff going on. You'll see it. It will be a podcast series, so it'll be good.
Well, I'm super excited. I'm always grateful and thankful that you make time to come on the show. And it's always a pleasure to listen to your insight. And good luck with all of your ventures. And I would love to get you back again. It's always fun to talk to you. Maybe next time we can. I always say I want to take it light, but then I follow you and I see you. And then I'm like, oh, man, I put so much pressure on myself to get some of these like really, really, really intense topics to have you break down and look at. But good luck. I know you're very, very busy, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but thanks again for coming on. And I hope you have a great holiday season, and I'm really excited to see what comes from you next.
Oh, thank you, Dustin. Yeah, that's really sweet. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Yeah, you have a good holiday too.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID is very serious. Please stay safe and stay healthy. And you can follow K10 on Twitter on K10, and she just always does great stuff. So thanks again.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
You're very welcome.